think back and take a look at some of the items that you've owned within the past like 6 months, right? Everything you've ever bought. Obviously, I'm not saying pull out a spreadsheet as of right now, but just a rough idea of some of the things that you've bought, some of the games that you've bought, some of the items that you've bought, clothes, shoes, makeup, anything along the lines of that, right? How much of that stuff did you actively use or get a good use out of? Probably not much. We live in a very, very consumer based culture where everything gets an insane amount of hype and convinces you to buy it because you need it right now. But the truth is, do you really need all of that shit? You can probably comfortably say no. And if you're a little more frugal, maybe you have a better understanding of what your money actually goes towards, but maybe you also have some of those things that you fall into the hype for, which is naturally okay. I'm not telling you to not spend your money, nor is this like a deep analytical way of giving financial advice, but I think it's a good thing that we should recognize this sort of thing. And the reason I say that is because we as consumers need to take the power back. With the convenience of streaming and something like the PlayStation now taking away the possibilities of discs and further putting us into the streaming culture of us owning nothing and being happy with it. Oh, that was my phone. We need to recognize the fact that we as the consumers have the power. But I think a lot of hype generates off of things to the point where people now think to themselves, what, am I not going to get this? Think of the Switch 2, for example. That's some of the most anti-consumer shit I've ever heard in my entire life, but so much hype has got to the point where people are judging others for not getting a Switch 2. But that's stupid, even though they don't agree with some of the Switch 2 things. Now, I know that isn't the case for every single consumer. Some people like to just say, hey, I just got off a long day of work. I just need to relax and play a fun game, right? And the current game would be the most fun to me. And that's totally okay. They don't need to think too deeply about what they consume or what they buy. They either just need a distraction from the day that they've had or something along the lines of that. Sometimes it's not too deep for the specific individuals. But I think for a lot of the discourse that this consuming culture has brought, with endless subscription services, constantly having to pay for half-assed or unfinished content, I think we need to realize as a consumer, we have way more power than most people realize. But we've been put in this narrative that we don't own shit and we're going to be happy about it. And the fact that we don't really have any power whatsoever. Like, it's actively weird thinking that if everyone were to all simultaneously unsubscribe from one major platform for a week, a month, things would topple over tremendously to a way that we couldn't even imagine. I'm not saying the companies would go under it within a month, because I would think that most have contingency plans to last out the year or hopefully a lot longer. But I think it would just really shift into perspective who actually has the power when it comes to these services. I've seen a lot of discourse about how PlayStation is, how GTA 6 is, and it's because these sellers or these companies know that they can get away with it because people don't have the willpower enough to stop purchasing shit that they probably don't desperately need right at the time. I'm very hyped for GTA 6, but I know I'm probably waiting for a PC release realistically, because I've now learned that the hype doesn't really mean as much for me on certain things. And I know saying that, I'm not perfect. I'm probably still going to fall to the hype of some things. Like, for example, I fell to the hype of Resident Evil, but I've given myself a personal rule where I need to pay the amount of money. The amount of money that I pay should equate to the amount of hours played. So if I pay for a $20 game, I should be able to get 20 hours of it. And that's not the perfect rule for me, but that is my overall rule of thumb that I can constantly reference back to see if games that I want to purchase are worth playing. Now, I'm going to compare it to a lot of games because that's one of my biggest hobbies. That's one of my things right there. So we'll use that as an example. There used to be a lot of games that I constantly wanted to play based off of the hype, based off of the trailer, or sometimes, very rarely though, based off of the reputation of the company. Did I get them? Sure. Did I pay an absurd amount of money for them? Absolutely. Did I pay what my rule of thumb suggests? Probably not. I probably got a solid 10, maybe 20 hours out of it when the game was $80 to $100. Therefore, I didn't necessarily feel like it was worth it. Do I have some things in my house as of right now that I bought because of the hype or because it looked cool? Absolutely. Did I really get its worth out of it? Fuck no. Now, sometimes I'm going to say, treat yourself. Don't be super, super strict or frugal on yourself because it's your money at the end of the day. You should do what you want. You know, if you want to go out for a nice dinner, Absolutely do it. Obviously, you don't get an insane amount of value using that exact same rule of thumb, and it varies on every single situation. But I think it's accurate and good to still have a general rule of thumb of your spending habits and to not fall into hype so easily. Treat yourself the way you deserve to be treated, but I think it is important that you should also realize that you should put your money towards things that actually have some sort of value to you, or things that you can get the value out of. And I think with things like TikTok Shop and shit like that, really pushes hype towards buying a shit ton of useless shit for a bunch of money. Now, I'm saying this not as like a minimalist or nomad type of person that doesn't subscribe to any sort of services whatsoever, but I subscribe to services. I just use the shit out of them. As much as I don't like the idea or the CEO, Jeff Bezos, I use Amazon Prime because I use it for free games. I use it for Twitch. I use it for Prime itself. I use it for Prime Video. Unfortunately, I can say that that is a really good service with a really good package. And I get my use out of it. But there's probably people there that have 17 different subscriptions and only use 4 of the apps without even realizing. That's where like all the sponsorships of like Rocket Money or whatever the fuck come from. This is not sponsored, by the way. But like, that's how one business feeds, weirdly enough, into another business. And then you end up spending so much money because you're not actively thinking of all the shit that you're paying for. These companies are meant to work together in a way that absolutely fucks you, the consumer. Therefore, but the thing is, you're the one paying for these services. You don't necessarily realize it or think about it because I don't know if there's just so many distractions nowadays or there's so many services, but like, throughout this convenience, it's become less and less convenient. Look at how the TV services are nowadays. We used to pay for cable, which would give us a fuck ton of channels, right? But now we're paying for 20 different subscription services. So we're paying basically what was 20 times the amount that cable probably was providing. We're repaying for cable again, but we're paying for the individual channels of cable. Why? Like, now it's probably going to go full circle where some company is going to say, hey, we can offer you a package deal. You can get your Netflix, you can get your Crunchyroll, you can get your Craves, you can get all this for the price of one, which, crazy, is just cable again. We need to actually control our spending. Of course, treat yourself, but like, realize what your money is going towards, because in doing that, us as the consumer has given these companies so much power in order to use and abuse us to the point where we don't even realize that that's happening, but we do feel like there is unfair treatment. But we also feel powerless because we feel like we can't do anything. That is insane. It feels like shooting yourself in the foot and then wondering how the bullet wound got there. And I'm not trying to say it's all our fault and we should like take, the full blame, but there is some accountability to be held. But I will say that these companies have good manipulation tactics to not make you actively think about all the money that you're spending. And subscription services bank on you forgetting completely, especially since there are so many. Take a look around at your expenses once again. Realize the amount of money that you're spending on useless shit, I should say, that end up being valueless maybe a month or two later. How much shit is bought because of the hype? How much shit is bought because of quote unquote good promotions? And how many things have you completely forgotten that you're continuously paying for? There are ways to counter this. One thing that I do, because sometimes I do need subscription services for different things, I personally am the type of person to start a subscription service and then immediately end it the second I buy the subscription service, so I get the week or the month-long thing, and I don't have to worry about running into accidentally renewing it when I didn't mean for it in the first place. They bank on you forgetting, so I can't forget if I cancel it immediately. I know not all services do that. They'll probably have a way where they're just like, hey, if you cancel it, that means you get rid of it now and you can't buy it. Like, as in, it'll just like completely cancel the whole thing and not give you a trial. But there are ways of like subverting this. But us as the consumer can realize that we have a lot more power than the companies want to present us as having. Hell, we just have a lot more power in society's case. Imagine how quick society would crumble if people just didn't show up to work for a week, for a day maybe. Shit would get fucked up. Now, I'm not saying topple over society immediately, because there are some services that we need in order for the society to run. But I'm just saying, realize the power that you have as the average person, as the average consumer. And of course, Companies don't want us realizing that we have this power, so they do everything that they possibly can in their power to keep us away from each other, to have no community, to foster no community whatsoever, so we can't have ideas like this. We can't form together to do shit like this. Because as long as we're all separated, nobody has power except for incredibly rich people. Imagine the nuke that would go off if nobody ordered GTA 6. Sorry, pre-ordered GTA 6. Obviously, that's not going to happen. I'm not pre-ordering it. I'm waiting to the PC release, as I said earlier. But imagine the nuke that would happen at Rockstar Industries if no one pre-ordered GTA 6, right? Even if we all promised to buy it the second day it was out, right? But imagine the nuke that would drop at that company. Imagine if everyone canceled their Amazon Prime subscription, on the same day and promised to not use it for a month. Imagine the nukes that would drop at these companies to the point where they start throwing deals at you. I use like Uber and Uber Eats, for example, right? And one of the fun things that I do is, the very least, to make sure that I'm not paying full price, I'll open the app and then I'll close it. And then it'll immediately send me a deal saying like, hey, you can get this, 25 to 50% off if you use it within the next bit, right? And the ideal was I wasn't even going to order food that day, but I can save that coupon until I actually inevitably need it. But I'll open up the app so then it can tell, the company, hey, this person was on the app, but they didn't get anything. Send them something so there's a higher chance of them getting this thing. Although that's good marketing and a good way to get me to actually buy shit, it does also show that I do have the power, because they have these coupons available at all times. And the fact that they sent it to me as a desperate way to grab my attention again and get me back on their apps kind of shows that, hey, yes, they can tempt me to do this, but also they're desperate for that service. That's the case with most companies. If you weren't able to give into the hype, or if companies show, even with all these price increases happening with a lot of consoles, if their sales go downwards, there's going to be sales going on as a way to attract other people. Like, I'm pretty sure something similar happened with Xbox Game Pass, where they increased the price significantly and everybody was pissed off. There's people probably still paying for it, but then they decreased the price once again because they realized they weren't making as much money. Granted, I don't think they decreased the price lower to what the original price was, but that was a way for, yes, them to market and them to kind of make a scummy way of making us pay more money, but it also was a way for them to realize that they can't just fuck over everybody completely. If we were to take this mindset and apply it to a lot of very large businesses, I think things could change a significant amount. But the thing is, people live off of hype and they don't think 10 steps ahead. And that's the main issue with all of this. And especially with how society and social media has really, really emphasized the hype and consumer market and the need to consume so much useless shit, it's only getting harder and harder to combat that. But maybe, hey, similar to how communities organize days to do stuff or organize revolts or riots or protests, maybe we can do the same in terms of our spending sometime. Those are just my thoughts. Leave.